up, take them to the way beyond. All endeavors never settle when the play is on. Turning measures from a little to a major one. Whoa. Activated like lacking patience, decision made it. Gymnasticated so innovative can't be debated. Flow aquatic, don't know a challenge, it been amazing. Fact of the matter, got the pattern to be the greatest.
We the future that you run from, and we're only getting louder, hitting harder than a bass drum. Now we're only getting louder. She is powerful, she got everything she needs. See her flick her hair, see her be her own queen. Never underestimate the strength you have within. You can take the win, you can take the win. We the future that you run from, hitting harder than a bass drum. And we're only getting louder, and we're only getting prouder. Lights out, lights out. Lights out, lights out.
After every finish line, another challenge awaits. How can we continue to push innovation in a sport at the forefront of technology? This is how. Discover how Aramco and the Aston Martin Formula One team aim to meet Formula One's sustainable fuel targets. Aramco, powered by How.
Greatness is in an instinct. A mind sharpened with attuned senses. Awakened by what we're known for. But legacies are meant to be left behind. Why play to your limits when you can break them? Hear only victory. Forget what you know. Unleash what's next.
Gotta raise the bar. Like bodybuilders, gotta raise the bar. Push the levels up, take them to the way beyond. All endeavors never settle when the play is on. Turning measures from a little to a major one. Activated like lacking patience, decision made it. Gymnasticated so innovative can't be debated. Flowing
Hello and welcome to Gamers8 and welcome to our fifth and final title of our event, PUBG Mobile. My name is Banks and I am your host and I am joined on the main stage by my co-host, Fancy.
حياكم الله من جديد أعزائنا المشاهدين والحضور في البطولة الأخيرة معنا في حدث جيمرز 8 معنا في المملكة العربية السعودية في الرياض، وآخر تايتل راح يكون معنا إن شاء الله راح يكون PUBG موبايل، وهالمرة ما هو بس PUBG موبايل، لا PUBG موبايل الورلد انفيتيشنال راح تكون أول أيامها اليوم بإذن الله.
Yes, the PUBG Mobile World Invitational will be held across the next 2 weeks. And this week we're going to have our main tournament, and then next week we have something very special for you at home that we're calling the AfterParty Showdown.
راح نشوف ان شاء الله اليوم اول ايام PUBG موبايل وورلد انفيتيشنال، وراح تستمر معنا خلال الثلاث ايام القادمه، لكن الاسبوع القادم باذن الله راح يكون عندنا شيء مميز وشيء مختلف عن PUBG موبايل وورلد انفيتيشنال، وراح يكون الافتر بارتي شو داون بنشهده مع بعض ان شاء الله هنا في نفس المسرح.
Yes, across the next 2 weeks, we have a total of $3 million worth of prize money up for grabs for our players, and also the Gamers8 trophy. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We have a competition to get started. So I'm going to send you over to the desk where they can break everything down before we dive into our first map.
18 فريق من افضل الفرق من انحاء العالم متواجدين معنا اليوم يتنافسون في البطوله، ولا ننسى ان الجائزه راح تكون مقدارها اكثر من 3 مليون دولار بتكون متوزعه ما بين الاسبوع الاول والاسبوع الثاني في اشياء كثيره ممكن نتكلم عنها، في تفاصيل كثيره ممكن نتطرق لها، لكن قبل كذا خلونا على طول اعزائنا المشاهدين والحضور نتوجه للاستوديو التحليلي نتكلم عن المباراه اكثر ونشوف ايش اللي ممكن نواجهه اليوم.
Thank you so much, Banks and Fancy, for that. It was a great introduction, and it's going to be a great tournament, not only this week, but of course next week as well. I'm Jason Kaplan, I'm your host here, and I cannot do this show alone no matter how hard I try, and I feel like I said that a million times, but it is always true. We have Maxman here joining me, and Clarissa on the very end. Gentlemen, it's been a long time since we've seen each other in person. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. It feels really good to be back here. Not only us together on the desk, but also we've got the players here, finally able to play in an offline event. So I'm really hyped to see how things are going to pan out.
Yeah, exciting. I think ultimately there's some different dynamics coming into this tournament as well to figure out how all these teams are going to stack up against one another. It kind of feels me like a World Cup almost here for the World Invitational, so I'm excited for it.
There's so many different things, as you mentioned, so many different reasons why this is extra special. We'll get to that in just a second, actually, as we take a look at the format of the entire tournament. Now, normally, when we're doing these PUBG Mobile events, we have 16 teams. Whenever we have more than 16 teams, it's like, okay, well, we'll have groups, and we'll play out groups. Some groups come in, some groups come out. But you know what here? Ladies and gentlemen, 18 teams are playing at the exact same time. And Max, we know that's going to change the strategies out of every single team.
Yeah, the first time I saw this, I was like, is that a typo? No, we actually have 18 teams in the lobby this time, and that's going to change so many dynamics. We'll have time to talk about that more in depth, but like drop locations, rotations too, how much space is available in the circles. Everything is changing for this event, and hopefully the teams have done their homework to prepare for this.
Teams are going to feel the squeeze on both drops as well as those rotations, which is very important to kind of break down here as the tournament goes on. I think ultimately, though, it's going to test a lot of the teams' potential for adapting to other teams around them here as they continue on the tournament.
And we've kind of been like theorizing what could happen. And typically when you look towards the very late game, if you have a full squad up, you're most likely going to win the match, right? But we're not really expecting many squads to ever have 4 players left alive when we get to the very end. Yeah.
There's a potential of that. I mean, you could potentially lose people on rotation. You could actually have more infighting in certain compounds, etc. Splits are going to be harder to execute as well because you're just going to have a few more people in the vicinity looking at you as you're even trying to transition to some of those compounds. So it's going to be very exciting to see how they solve the puzzle on the battleground to deal with all of the teams near them.
And also it's very interesting, I had the chance to talk with a few of the players, the coaches too. A lot of them are going to be very stubborn, like they do not want to give their drop location away.
Surprise.
We are going to have quite a few happening, hopefully.
Well, you know what? That's dangerous, right? It's 3 days. We have 18 matches in total. Like, it's not like you have a lot of time to adapt. It's not like you have a lot of time to make mistakes and make up for it. As we can see here, 3 days of action with 11th, 12th, and 13th. The after party, we could talk a little bit about it. I'm actually super excited for this as well because not only are we changing like the format a bit, how the prize works a bit, but we also have some new teams coming in.
Yeah, we're going to have some big teams like, your Bigatron, Red Aliens are going to be coming into the mix. So I'm really happy to see how they're going to be performing in particular. And also the team I'm going to be keeping my eye out for in that event is going to be RAT Sport. That has had some up and downs recently in when it comes to Arabia. But I think that in this event, it will be great to see how they can perform. So really intrigued to see how it's going to pan out.
It's going to be exciting as well. 5 teams, of course, from this event going to be joining
And utter chaos, I think is fair to say, when you look at that after show party. When you look at how things shape up, 6 different maps, different ways to be able to earn some prize pool as well. Exciting.
Or you can see here the point system. If you guys watched any PUBG Mobile in the last, let's just say like 2.5 years now, it's pretty much exactly the same. 15 points for a chicken dinner. But of course, at the very bottom, 1 elimination will equal 1 point. And considering we have now 8 extra players playing every single match, that's 8 extra elimination points that you could see yourself getting.
Yeah, actually, I think the elimination is going to be part of the strategy of a lot of the teams that like to play aggressive. So we'll see how it's going to pan out. But if you want to go aggressive, you know there's definitely one award you could be aiming for, which is Gunslinger. So it's a little bit different from your top fragger award this time around. Gunslinger is going to be calculating your top damage and also your total eliminations. And then you have another award, which is Eagle Eye, which does the average of your top 2 longest shots in the game registered that gets a knock or an elimination. So 2 new awards are pretty intriguing here.
I like that it takes into account 2 long eliminations as well, because ultimately there are moments where somebody's like firing far into the distance, and you know they might get themselves a few lucky shots here and there, but it's going to reward some consistency in those kind of long fights with your DMRs, etc.
I'm a little sad to not see like a roadkill specialist or something like that, because we had Salazar, you know, thinking back to PMPL. I mean, he just pretty give him the money now, right? If you think back to it, you can see, of course, all the social medias you guys can check us out on. Make sure you guys keep this in mind as well, because later on I'll tell you some ways you guys can actually earn some prizes at home. But it's gonna be an extremely exciting event, and I really can't wait to see what's gonna happen. We'll be getting into the teams in just a few minutes here, but let's learn a little bit more about the teams though before we do dive into talking about them all.
Give it your everything, it ain't no holding back. Time to be the one, best squad, that's a fact. Nobody can stop me when I get in my zone. Take it higher, go from unknown to world known. On another level, competition is in trouble. Putting numbers on the board and it's about to double. We can never fold, we can never break. To be the greatest, we will do whatever it takes. Legendary, feeling like it's my moment. No slowing down now, we can move forward. We got the passion and drive, we stay working. An undeniable team, we on the circle. Bring the fire like a dragon, hunger and the passion. Making history, our energy is everlasting. We're staying on top, team so supreme. Making big moves, the world has never seen. We never fall back, hold our ground where we at. We never fall back, hold our ground where we at.
Man, if this doesn't get you guys hyped for what's going to be coming up in these next 2 weeks, I don't know what will. Fantastic song, and as well as some fantastic teams going to be participating here in these 2 weeks. But guys, let's take a look at our schedule, right? Let's get an idea of what's going to be happening today, what maps we'll be going to, and of course, in what order. And man, I'm happy to not see us ending up on Sandhawk.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say it before anyone else does.
Just had to get rid of it right away. I'm sad we're not seeing Vikendi at all. But hey, the after party, well, maybe
You'll get a little
something.
bit.
We'll get a little snippet of it, but it's going to be interesting. 3 Wrangles are going to be also having your 2 Miramars, 1 Sanhok. Unfortunately for Nigma Galaxy and TJB, not as much Shield they can do, but they can try and get a few points here and there.
I like that Erangel's the full focus.
All right, we're going to head over to James Yang, the director of PUBG Mobile Esports, here on the stage.
I would like to say personally how incredible it is to talk to you all in person. It's too far long, as we all know. I'm here today to share the
place at PMGC. Really surprised us. They were so consistent. They've been really consistent this year, I think, having the most chicken dinners in a PMPL across the world. This team is amazing, and they should be looked at as one of the favorites.
Yeah, and in a very similar grain to Stalwart, they are a team that has stuck together for, I think, almost 700 days now. The roster has stuck together, never changed, which is very impressive to see. And also, they're playing locally, right? They are a local team. They won PMP Arabia in the spring season. A little bit too close on the fall season, unfortunately. But having fans present for this offline event, it doesn't happen too often for PUBG Mobile. We'll see if the offline buff is going to really work out for them.
The region has strong teams, for sure. Enigma Galaxy has to be one of them. I think one thing that goes against them a little bit is that we only have one Sandhawk per day. They are decent there. They're playing the averages, is fair to say, when it comes to a battleground like Sandhawk. But beyond that as well, we've seen good compound control from them when we've been kind of covering them. They've continued that throughout the months. So impressive stuff from them to continue on into this tournament.
So I want to bring up a question to you guys. I know you have more teams you want to talk about, but I feel like a general consensus I've seen from a lot of these teams going into this event was they did either really, really bad in the league stage, and then they did well in the finals. They did well in the league stage, and they did well in the finals. They carried it over. But a lot of the teams struggled when it came to those regional playoffs, right? Those regional championships. A lot of teams just weren't really able to live up to what they did in their own region. And when you're playing at an international event at a global scale like this, I'm kind of worried for those teams.
Yeah, I think that's the lack of international experience that a lot of these teams have, unfortunately, heading into this. So this first day is going to be rough for some of these squads, right? They're going to have to deal with it the hard way. It's going to be like trial and error for a lot of these guys, seeing how the drop goes, how the rotation goes. And I think that after this first day, after the first game of each map, things will start to settle in a little bit more, but it is a lot of unknown heading into now.
It's definitely a feel-out day, right?
Yeah.
That's fair to say. We have seen these guys have a few test games here and there to try and feel out the drops, as you're saying. But even as we've studied these teams' drops, where they're going, sometimes in their own regions, they've had their preferred drop, but then had to move away. Here, we're going to see some of that again. We're going to see teams like, I mean, I can't even do it.
Gaming.
I can't hear myself. Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, we can.
Apparently, yeah. I mean, for example, their Yasnaya split that they were doing with 2 and south of Kameshki, as well as Yasnaya. You have to tighten that up in this kind of lobby here because there's more threats actually looming on the edges of your drop. So even from the word go in these games, you got to be very, very careful about how you're feeling at the other teams.
I mean, for teams who haven't played on a national level, like you think of Vivo Key, and I know we talked about this actually quite a bit before the event, they've not really played a LAN. They've not really played a global event. I mean, you're kind of hitting two big things all in one. Like, realistically, what can you expect from a team like this? I mean, obviously, Brazil has high hopes for them.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's all about the preparation going into the event, your scrims. And I also know that a lot of teams have picked up a coach pretty much last minute, but that can have a pretty drastic impact on your team and how you approach and visualize the game, right? I think that can have a pretty big impact. Like talking about Vivo Keyed, they qualified above teams like Influence Rage, Alpha 7, which is even Loops, which is very, very impressive. So I've had the chance to cast them a little bit over in the Western tournaments and like Americas. I think they have the chops to do well on an international event. Unfortunately, we'll have to see how it's going to go because we've never seen it before, but I think there's a chance that Vivo Keyed could be like a dark horse almost heading into this.
Okay. Actually, Claris, do you have a dark horse that you're looking at?
I mean, it's kind of up and down. I guess I would have to pick a team like Morph. They come from a great region. I did expect other teams to qualify from that region, like RRQ, for example. But they showed that they're able to hang with the top teams there. So maybe they can make something happen in this lobby, even though I'm favoring the big dogs overall.
Okay, yeah. And considering, again, we have 18 matches, right? And you're talking about like getting accustomed to the lobbies, you don't have time. And we have actually seen, like you mentioned before, a lot of coaches come in, a lot of really well-known coaches, some maybe on Nova X Quest F, the ones who have been able to take home PMGC. Like, how much can a coach realistically offer you when you only had, I guess, maybe a little bit of lead up into the event, but you only have 3 days of play? It's really hard to make drastic changes to how the lobbies play out. I
mean, in terms of gameplay, of course, you've got a lot of research and work that's been done in the background. I think it's mostly getting the players and the teams in the mentality, because a lot of the coaches that have been picked up by these teams have that LAN experience. They know how it works out. They know how the teams adapt to it. And I think just telling them how it's going to happen and how it's going to go down is already good for the mental state. Like, they seem more prepared heading into this.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be getting into our first match shortly here, but I want to give a shout out here to Sony with the Play to Win with Xperia 1 IV, creating collaboration with professional esports players, so you know it's going to be good. The Sony's Xperia is the official smartphone provider and partner here of PUBG Mobile. But as you saw before on the schedule, we do have Erangel coming up here in just a few moments to kick things off this event. High fives going out, at least air high fives as well here. But it's time to bring in our commentators, maybe have a little chat with them before the match kicks off here. We got John, Allen, and Blank joining me here on the desk. Gentlemen, this is going to be crazy. It's going to be exciting. Maybe you have some teams you want to point out. I'll leave the floor open to you.
Thank you very much, Jason. Yeah, we're going to be getting into this first game, Blank. There's a lot of teams here with a lot on the line.
There is, yeah. And Jason was asking, you know, is there any other teams that maybe we're looking at? I think there's one team that maybe the guys on the desk haven't mentioned yet that I'd love to talk about, and that is actually Vampire Esports. I do think that this team currently looks extremely good as a team overall. You know, they've been through a lot of different iterations of Victim Sovers at the start of the year into Victim 365, then Ion Esports in their qualifier for the Spring 22 finals, and now finally coming through you know, now as Vampire Esports. So, oh no, they were Power Triple 8 right at the beginning. Sorry, that's Morph GG I'm talking about. But they've gone through a lot of iterations. They have now Corpai on the team, who used to be on Power Triple 8 when they had some of their better games. He's coaching, so they're talking about coaching on the desk as well. This could be a great position for them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be looking pretty strong for them right now. Everyone loading up into the game. I think we've got the plane path of the first game maybe loading on up here. Blank as well. You can see the players in the lobby. Look at that. They're running around. They're trying to get everything sorted. Those furtive glances over the shoulder there. Something going on.
Yeah, no, just trying to get people into the match, and already we are having things kicked off here in the PMWI, this regional clash between so many different players from so many different countries here. It's great to see the representation. There's no problems either because everyone's playing here at LAN.
Game number one, loading on up. Erangel as we kick things off here. Players loading on, the plane path moving over as it fades into the map. Loading on up. Match number one. It all starts now. The helicopters flank the plane.
Helicopters coming out of this one next to the plane here. We are having our plane path already. We did get a little quick sneak peek at this plane path at the beginning of the game, heading just under Novo up towards Gatka. Now this is a fantastic little drop spot already for Stalwart. I'd imagine they're going to be dropping out the plane here, but it's Aton jumping out almost immediately, heading up possibly towards Mill to Power. That's a drop spot that they've been loving recently. Rozok, on the other hand, quite inaccessible, and that was going to be quite the big hot drop for a lot of teams like Donuts heading up there, a few other teams on that location with Damwon and Kia just underneath them in School and Apps, but you can see that Stalwart already immediately in Novorobnoye. Sometimes they will head towards North Sosnovka, but this is their preferred drop, and this is great for an 18-man lobby, John.
Yeah, and then Wildcats as well over on that military base, joining them on that South Island. Those northern crossings may be a little bit more populated, do you think, after those bridges with this plane path as south as it is. Some teams will try and migrate north, sure, but that traffic jam will certainly have an impact.
Yeah, you're just trying to cover as much of the map as possible. You know, James, Max, Jason on the desk, all talking about this beforehand, saying that, you know, there is going to be a lot of space on the map that you're going to have to cover. Not so many scouting positions now can be taken for these teams, just in the early game at least, just in case you get caught off guard by a team that's in the vicinity that you maybe wouldn't think would be there before. Though we do have Vampire Esports, they are doing their usual drop down towards Ferry Pier, Quarry, and Primors, really taking things wide at the beginning of this game.
Yeah, a little bit of a late dropout, sure, but it was fairly close by to the plane path, right? So they will have plenty of time to be able to navigate and get things sorted for themselves moving forwards on their northerly movements that will have to come through as the circle pops. It looks like Falcon already in competition with Morph. The top of the hill currently occupied by Morph.
Yeah, it's going to be quite difficult here for Morph to actually... well, it's very easy for Morph to pick up on this one because Falcon's drop is a little bit further up towards Yaz, honestly. So Morph drop out early, get the catch on Falcons. Already taken one player from alone down here. Does get res back up into the fight, though. So not quite elimination coming through just yet. But Donuts USG actually currently have 2 points already.
Yeah, they're starting to pop off. I mean, Looks like they've managed to find themselves a little bit of a spot. Falcons, as we were talking about, rezzed up in a little bit of cover. Presence known, though, between those two teams on that split area. Never alone. Has his team.
Yep.
Seems to play to the name. But look at this. You've got Box Gaming with some trouble.
Yeah, Bucks dropping right on the coastal side, and it's VGS trying to pass by them in vehicles. Now, VGS have two spots. It's up towards Severny as their secondary, Pubg as their primary. Not able to get to any of them. So this is so awkward, but this is now time for Bucks to try and show some dominance. They regrouped around Break and SOAS after their decent PMGC. I think it was World League. Now they really need to show their stuff here after losing a couple of players and reforming.
Nearly perfect nade there coming through from Break, but doesn't quite get the knock. They will have got that hit marker, that indication that there's a player close. They know there's a vehicle moved. Well, they still know that there's a player this close. Mini 14 with the 4X on the off angle for VGS. Should be pretty solid at holding down this ridgeline, but if 3 players from Box go down, it's going to be tough. Around the side, though, gives away the position, and it's an easy spray down for Box Gaming to pick up their first elimination of the game.
That's a really sick just run around there from the team. Very fantastic stuff overall. VGS just crumbling. Obviously not able to get either of their drum spots in this game. And they just fumble for it. And this is what the 18-team lobby does to you. You know, you try and head to a spot that you think may be free, but it's just not.
Still bleeding out VGS down to 2. They will be taken on out. Donuts. They were contesting as well. NTIMxArKGaminG taking early losses. These are the 2 points that you were pointing out earlier.
Yep. Yeah, that is rough there. But USG, honestly, this is a team that really wanted to take Rozhok. You know, in all the practice games we see them play before this, they have always gone Rozhok here. Just looking at anything on my drops in terms of statistics, you know, 4 Rivals was the other team that was going to head over here. But in fact, you know, NTIMxArKGaminG tried to challenge out. Usually they're the Pachinki team, so maybe they dropped just slightly short. USG had to go a little bit further. And just on the way, they picked up a couple of points.
You love to see it.
Yeah.
Certainly if you're a USG fan. Falcon, 4 players in a vehicle. Not advisable. They're heading towards Yasnaya Polyana as well, which is currently occupied by Morph. On this northern rotation, they are behind the game. Morph on the western side of Yasnaya right now. They will be holding down a lot of those buildings, a lot of those compounds. Hopefully they're going to spot the Falcons' approach, right? It's a very open field. If you're looking that way, you will be seeing them. They're only in 1 vehicle as well, which means that if you're taking some pot shots, you might even be able to get a couple of eliminations there.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a real chance for it. Now, VGS, you know, broken and battered, heading up still past Damwon Kia, who've still gone for that Apps School split. It's a little tighter this time, though, and I respect that from Damwon Kia. James on the desk was talking about, you know, how really they wanted to keep things survival-based. Get towards the end of the game. It's not about huge eliminations, just consistently putting up those placement points. Now, that's going to give you a good average point over in the PMWI, but 3 days, you do need to strike out a little bit. Donuts USG getting these initial 2 points and also claiming Rozhok straight away. This is fantastic for them. And Donuts USG, they've come out on top in Japan at the moment. Even in the PUBG Mobile Showdown between Korea and Japan, they were a full 10 points ahead of anyone else in that lobby right at the top. So really fantastic stuff from Donuts USG so far.
Hopefully spinning around, turning their opponents' heads whenever they can. Morph, I think they have spotted Falcons. Falcons, you can see, still with a little bit of damage on board. That might have been from earlier, probably still healing that one up. Never Alone was the player who was already knocked by the enemy team. I don't know if it was Morph, actually. I have to go back and watch that again. But Falcons did get knocked. Oh, it was Morph from up the hill. That was the first engagement that they had. So they did already do a little bit of damage. It looks like they will not leave each other alone for now. VGS down to 2 players. They've spotted back-to-back on the ridgeline. It looks like, back-to-back just want to take up position.
Yeah.
And see whatever vantage points they can try and claim.
This is fairly interesting as well because Regan's trying to head in the direction of Morph. These are 2 teams that drop in Yasnaya. Regan's with a Yasnaya South Kameshki split, but Falcon's trying to take up this position as well over in Yasnaya. So a lot of contention on this eastern side of the map. I know that, you know, 52 Esports, they've tried to take Stalba and then South Yasnaya as well before, but right now they're right on the western coast at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it seems Seems like they've changed it up. I mean, to be fair, there have to be some changes, right? In this lobby, it's a new mode that these teams won't have played with 18 teams in it, right? It is seemingly a small difference, but it absolutely will have an impact, as the desk covered previously. So we'll have to see what impact that actually has, because right now, we haven't seen much more than 1 or 2 hot drops, right?
Well, what I will say, you know, is that people have been very stubborn on their drop spots. And even just from the small research that I was able to do, I say small, no, modest, small research they were able to do about their drop spots beforehand in this tournament, you know, a lot of these teams have gone for these drop spots regardless of how south that playing path was. So, you know, we could have this gentleman's agreement going on from a lot of these teams. It's like, these are our spots, we can't go away from them. So secondary spots just really aren't too available anymore. And for that reason, if you get a really, really bad playing path, you could be in for a very bad game.
The playing path on this one was very south, and the circle did shift up north. And I'm looking at the teams that have made that journey north early, and I'm looking at 4 rivals, right? All the way up in Severny. Right at the top of this circle now, playing from their northern bastion. Stalwart Esports on the southeast of the circle, just about crossing in. One of the favorites of this tournament right now, Blank.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't have too many notes on this team just because they play things so clean, and there's only so many ways you can write clean, to be honest with you. So I was very, very impressed with Stalwart. I think so is the desk. You know, they're set for a fantastic PMWI, but we could see some rising stars, some rising countries just come out of nowhere and blast them out of the water, but we'll have to wait and see here. But for Stalwart, so far, things have been very good. I really do like this Novo drop for them in the beginning here. The edge of the map with 18 teams, it's going to be rough. There's not a lot of positions to play in, and with the loot that you get on board from Novo, with the 6 to 7 medkits that we saw already on just one of their players, you know, they'll be able to outlast that storm on the edge.
You'd hope so, with the caliber of teams that we're dealing with anyway. Although that works to their detriment as well, doesn't it? I mean, they have to face off against this super high caliber lobby. It's not going to be easy. Aiton take up the gas station. That's out to the west of Yasnaya Polyana. And Morph looking their way.
Yeah, so Morph just on that western road, right, with Aton just underneath them. And Yasnaya, for Morph, that being their original spot, they've actually moved west here towards that northern coast. So, you know, they're just looking out for any cheeky teams that try and hold on this north coast. And it's a great idea as well, because it's a very easy position to corner and cause mayhem for many teams, because you don't really want to cluster around this southern edge. There's so much space up towards Severny, especially with that southern playing path. This is a great position to, you know, take up and just chill out, take some time for yourself, especially if you dropped in South George. Like some of the teams, in fact, we've already seen TJB move up. Vampire Esports might want to head up there. So will 52 just in the South George bridge right now. So Morph could get a lot of points just from this singular position.
I'm looking at USG as well, right? You talked about earlier in the game. It's great. They've managed to get Rozhok. They've managed to lay claim to that area. But if they don't leave there early enough, it could prove to be their tomb, their mausoleum, right? If they aren't able to get across early enough, if it's a northern shift, they could really be scuppered.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can take every one of these teams and just imagine that they're elastic bands. And USG is that first elastic band. And you know when you create that elastic band ball, at some point it is going to break and explode. And poor USG is right in the middle. They are going to get,
just get bigger elastic bands.
You could do. I'm working with very small elastic bands here.
They certainly have had that opportunity, probably more so than most of these other teams. Morph had to move a lot at the start. I mean, Nikki Galaxy might have had that opportunity, but unfortunately they lost 2 players early.
Ooh.
4 rivals jetting down from the north side.
You absolutely would as well. I mean, this is a great time for them. You know, you get such an awful playing path. You head up all the way to Severnia, and the circle just continues to move north and north and north. And now at this point in time, they were being quite passive, but with this shift, they are absolutely sending it down into the circle, trying to take a position as fast as they can in one of the compounds. But it's TJB that's rocking up on 4 rivals who've just come to this position.
GK first leading the charge, getting first opening and doing it brilliantly. Living up to the name, first elimination for the TJB squad now, 4 rivals in the corner, backed up to the back building here. The height advantage in favor of TJB. Morph over the ridgeline as well. Watch out for that scout, watch out for the third party if this fight goes on too long. The off angle is there for 4 rivals. You can see that in the minimap on the top right. They have got those sightlines to control, but Lin's moving forwards as well, putting pressure on 4 rivals, forcing them out of this compound, of this cover. They want to try and catch them. They don't quite have the off angles, not just yet, but with that nade, jumper taken low for rivals behind the vehicle. Lin out first. Xiao soon to follow. Looking to go out wide. Will they spot the player? They should have caught sight of that one, and those bullets will certainly give the game away. The gunshots ring out, but not finding the knock. Jumper now in more danger. Swings around the corner. Lin sprays, but the Scar doesn't quite land it. Half HP, and it's spotted. There is the off angle. Tingsker finds what TJB are looking for. 2 players from 4 rivals are down.
Really incredible stuff, and yeah, I'm loving to see the new Scar love coming through, the most recent buffs for the guns coming into the game. You know, Scar being almost as good as the M4 now, if not better, depending in the hands. So really, really nice to see a little bit more variation in terms of that weaponry. Already another little knock coming through for Team Soul. But yeah, great stuff from TJB. Considering they were all the way over towards Hospital South George, that was one hell of a send that they made happen over towards this compound, which is now extremely central in this circle.
TJB firing for NTIMxArKGaminG, the first team to go down fully blank. They lost 2 players very early.
Yeah.
You kind of think, fair enough, go again.
It's a bit of a struggle, though, for NTIMxArKGaminG. It's not kind of the precedent you want to be setting as that team when everyone knows you as the survivalist. You are the Bear Grylls of the lobby, and it's just not working out for them here. Scry from Stalwart taking some shots over towards Wildcats. Already Ray going down. Defoe off in the distance, takes some pot shots back, but now it's the Wildcats having to regroup here and trying to make something work.
A moment, Wildcats heavily under fire for Stalwart on the south side of them, but there's a traffic jam to get further into the zone as the next circle pops heavily south as well. So it will be on their shoreline, but they have a lot of treacherous ground ahead of them.
Action eliminating Ray here.
Of course, if you guys want to earn points, you can complete daily mission. Once enough points are accumulated, you can tap on the rewards icon in the game to claim the corresponding reward. That's if you're watching enough of this PMWI.
You can participate in the event solo or team up with other players. That's absolutely fine. And you know what? Just like the players in the PMWI, teaming up could get you that reward just a little bit easier.
There's Vampire. You can see, you were talking about them earlier. They're swimming in the river right now. I always think that these river finishes in the middle section near that Roshok crossing is one of the most brutal places that these circles can finish.
I mean, all these teams on the northern side are going to be dragged across sandpaper, basically, trying to get into this circle. It's so unfortunate because you assume it's going north here. TJB got such a nice position, and it swings back down south. Now, I want to see USG, the Japanese team, translate this because they've been given such a good opportunity here for a chicken dinner right at the beginning of the day.
Highton looking to guard them out. Currently on the eastern side of the circle, will stop that rotation north, stop that progression west. Make things difficult. Down one, ahead. You can see they're taking a couple of knocks from back to back. I think this is the circle where most of this impact to the 18-team lobby will be felt, although we are down to 62 players.
17 teams still. I did not expect this at this point in the game. Already 17 minutes in. It's absolutely nutty here. 52 esports do knock themselves, though. That is extremely unfortunate. They're coming from that western side. But Stalwart, we mentioned them. They were taking a fight versus the Wildcats, and this is where they need to play the edge game perfectly. They've been thrown a little bit of a lifeline here on the southern edge. See if they can make anything happen with it.
Stalwart taking shots really fast and strong rotation, I'd say, but Lightning does get caught there, unfortunately, for the spray down. And they are going to lose him at the wall up the top. Back-to-back have their Polo representative for the squad. As the nades start to ring out. They're not going full aggression just yet, Blank.
Now, if you want to get yourself the 2022 PMWI Gunskin and outfit, you know, we have a sale period going on through from the 4th of August through to the 13th of August. We have 50% off PMWI packs, and you get a set straight away in that time frame, and 5 extra chances to draw the PMWI treasure chest.
And if you miss out on that first sale period, there is a second one from the 14th of September all the way up till the 15th of the next month, where you get 16% off PMWI packs. You get 6 chances to draw PMWI treasure chests.
Looking straight back at the game here, back-to-back have actually made it quite far from there. It was quite a difficult drop spot for them on that southern edge on the coast. Wildcats still in this one with 3 players. Surprisingly, you know, they took an absolute beating from Stalwart on that southeastern edge, but the circle is starting to close in right now. Directly on top of Rozok. Oh, USG, yes please.
They're very happy about that, you're right. We talked about how it might be their mausoleum, but instead it's going to be their pedestal.
Quite a difficult drop spot.
You're right. We talked about how it might be their mausoleum, but instead it's going to be their pedestal.
Somewhere to stay, and this is going to give them a little bit of protection going forward. Wildcats unfortunately do go down inside the river, and Vampire Esports will pick up a couple of those points, and so they're still going.
4 rivals, they went up early. They've come back down south. And they've really struggled on this crossing. It's a really, really dangerous crossing. Finally, though, we have got all of these teams getting out of the water. TJB, similarly, struggling to make that crossing, a little bit behind the curve. They will be going down. 11 teams remain.
I think 4 rivals and TJB, you can't blame it on them too much here, but Vampire Esports already with 8 eliminations. You know, I hate to say, I told you guys so, but here I am.
You don't hate to at all. You're lying.
No, I know. I'm loving it. I'm loving it so much. Currently, though, so many teams struggling, and I mean, it is one of those games where I don't blame anyone in this circle. You get a south playing path, it starts to shift up towards that northern side, it's looking northern side, hard shift back down towards Rozhok, so difficult to play around. Anyone who's still in this circle is really bruised at this point.
Yeah, but if you're one of the team, if you're supporting Vampire Esports, then you're going to be pretty happy if you're from Thailand, because of course all users in the region of the top 3 teams here at PMWI will have the chance to win a prize, with a maximum of 1 award per user.
Good stuff. Make sure you are participating in that and getting your rewards in, because we have a lot. Aiton, USG just looks down. Actually has the sights right on him, but just behind that wall, but they will have seen him now.
Donuts 4 alive. Got some early points. Was the downfall of Enigma Galaxy. And they might see themselves a little bit safer for it. Vivo Key trading blows with the strength in the lobby. Vampires, who have not had the easiest push right now. They have sometimes, well, they have had a couple of difficult moves to make, but it looks like they're standing up. Look at that, nades over the top. Really difficult for Vivo Key to get anywhere when Vampire are on the case. 11 eliminations. This team is starting to frag out. South side of the circle now. Stuff pops off as well.
They are popping off. And look, the thing is, in the SCA Championships, they came second just behind DXavier, but that was without any chicken dinners. They got so unlucky. If they had got even a single chicken dinner, they had just enough points to take it all home in that tournament. Now Vampire Esports, they're coming in strong for Thailand in PMWI.
This is domination from the northern side of the circle. Only taking 1 knock so far, 14 eliminations now racked up. It was 11 a second ago, Blank. I don't know what they've been scrimming on, but they are certainly going well. Push around the side for Donuts to get that final flush over onto Fran, pick up that elimination point, give themselves a little bit more breathing room.
The auto shotty in hand. Box Gaming just trying to hold it down. They've only taken 1 knock, so this is still decent. Down 1 Kia, as well as Japan, expect them guys to have a lot of shotguns on hand when you get to these guns. It's becoming meta in those regions, and it works out really well. So USG, they've got the DBS, they're ready to go.
Just Sung left for Damwon Kia, gets spotted on the hillside, and it's, surprise, surprise, Vampire Esports to pick up that elimination. Box moving in, but under fire. Shots from the top of the hill, that's Stalwart to have the sightlines on them. Omega cowering behind the wall for Team Seoul. Hopefully going to try and snake it in a lot later. 5 teams remain. This is good placement points right now for Team Seoul. 3 eliminations, a good start to the India's tournament.
Very, very decent stuff with a 5th place guaranteed. Like you say, John, this is decent for them to start off their run, but Vampire Esports have put on a masterclass here. 17 eliminations so far. It's already quite unbelievable. Use SG trying to keep things up. Just Missile remaining. Very long-standing member in Japan. He's been playing throughout all the tournaments. Let's see what he can get done in these final moments, but already brought low to 30%. Gets a quick heal off. Tries to go take Gozi-san back up off his knees onto his feet, but just can't quite reach him.
Gozi-san didn't get the memo that Whit beyond measure. Man, go down in the meantime. Donuts with 1 player alive as well.
STE Stalwart though, it's been difficult. It's been a difficult run for them. Still, they're making it happen. They just want to get those consistent points. If this is just one of Vampire Esports' only games where they do this kind of thing, Stalwart can still catch up. Action though, hits a big one.
They knew he was behind the wall. They knew where Break was going to be. And now Box have to push out, get the vault, go fast. But Stoned is on the case.
Dear
1
me.
found for Break. They're around the corner, but they just can't move up. There is nowhere to go. There is no place that is safe from the Vampires.
Stoned coming through from Mega Conquerors all the way back from 2019. Their uprun spiked as soon as they brought Stoned onto the team. He will go down finally. Missile in the back with the Vector. Somehow ruins the day.
What? USG looking to try and get some revenge onto Vampire Esports. They're down to 2 now, looking to take on Stalwart Esports. 3 teams remain.
Come on!
And Box Gaming stay alive for now, but it is so dangerous. Vampire Esports had their day just that little bit ruined with 22 eliminations.
They can still get 3 more eliminations in this match. Fluke still taking it to him.
Just one player now stands between Vampire Esports and a dominant performance in game number 1. Huge result for Vampire Esports.
That is unbelievable from Vampire Esports to bring it home with a 39-pointer. Second team behind them, USG, with everything laid on the cards for them, only 16 points.
Wow, wow, wow. What a gauntlet to lay down at the start of PMWI. The team from Thailand absolutely going wild.
That's the kind of score that you struggle to catch up with in 2 games, let alone setting that bar in 1 game at the very beginning of the day. If I am any other team here, I am quaking in my boots right now.
Absolutely. That was frightening. I mean, vampires are supposed to be, you know, mythical beings of terror. Right now, they are living up to that name.
It's seriously good stuff. I will say one thing is a lot of the teams try to take some very good positions, TJB in particular there, but Vampire on that western side, they had so much time coming in that, in fact, they had a great decision that they could make very late on to start sweeping on that western edge, and it just worked out fantastically for them. Still, a lot of skill involved to make that happen. I mean, they did not have a lot of cover. A lot of the times, mainly it just came down to the best defense is a good offense.
I mean, absolutely. That worked so well for them. I mean, I'm honestly speechless. What a way to kick things off, right? That is absolutely incredible. But I believe that we are going to head to the desk with the scoreboard being broken down.
Yeah, match rankings by STC.
Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. I thought the Sun was like a direct counter to Vampires, but they seem to have flourished here. 24 eliminations in the debut game here at PMWI from Thailand is ridiculous here, Max. I never would have thought this team would have shown up like they just did.
Well, we said the first game was going to be messy, right? It went way better than initially expected for anyone here. Vampire Esport, I mean, Wiz Kalash, we're going to have so many things to break down. The execution on their side was top tier.
Where do we begin? The fact they actually got themselves into that position.
Okay.
Go ahead, Max.
Okay, yeah, but Vampire Sport, it mainly is because of their drop location. They had to go for the wide rotate around all of the western side. And it just kind of closed down on all of the teams with Stalwart included and just like made the sandwich work out. So their rotation was on top of everything.
No, definitely. I mean, where they're actually dropping as well, this is not an easy circle to approach. But the fact that they actually drop in that southeast location of Primos, kind of that split, and then rotate all the way north, get themselves underneath the bridge, which for some of those circles is very powerful position to work with. But then it shifts away from them into Rozhok. They were able to transition from the bridge away effectively, take out people there, steal some of that kind of position from Donuts as time went on. Vampires played an absolutely spectacular game in a lobby that we had a lot of question marks around, I think is fair to say.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they really capitalized on that position. We'll talk about like what they did later on in the game a little bit more later on. But Stalwart, I'm not gonna lie, that is not bad. Okay, no, I talked about them on the pre-show. It was pretty good.
I think if they were just on the front page alone, you would have been like, yeah, pretty good. As long as they weren't like in last place.
As long as they're not last, I'll take it. Exactly. Yeah. So I'm pretty happy to see them actually perform this time. But hey, Team Sol, a few eliminations down there, no, definitely a decent start for them.
Yeah, not too bad. But what, as you're saying about Stalwart, is also particularly impressive because of playing path, their initial drop, and they're happening to try and get to the circle, given the fact that it's difficult to transition from Novo all the way north to try and find yourself some room. The fact that they were able to survive in the south side of Rozhok for as long as they did, also fight their way in, very impressive. But we kind of all teams, we kind of expect Stalwart to be impressive, right? So. Yeah.
Well, one team we also expect to be impressive is, well, Enigma Galaxy. And unfortunately, they lost 2 players right off the bat to Donuts. And I feel like the general story of this first match was just teams playing with no respect. Why give you respect? You have to earn it. You can't make me just give it to you naturally, right? And we saw like Donuts able to contend against a team like Enigma Galaxy who has such a great track record behind them and not really care. Take 2 limbs, walk away, be happy.
I think also there was a lot of issues that were caused by the plane path, right? Very southern plane path. A lot of teams trying to migrate up north. You had, what was it, Box Gaming versus Virtual Gaming Squad. That really caused some issues for the African team. So,
yes,
you know, already we knew that the start was going to be messy. You had this plane path to the mix. It was not an easy egg to crack here.
Yeah, especially for VGS, where they were. That was a difficult start for them, is fair to say. If you think about, you see a team dropping near you, kind of near those yellows, etc., to try and adapt from that, there's actually a lot of room in Ferry Pier, as well as to the east side of you when it comes to that farm split along the road that they could have potentially taken. But yeah, when we kind of approached the start of this tournament and saying that first game's going to be a bit of a feel out, based on playing path, based on that drop, that was a bit of a feel out as they just sent it towards the middle to try and salvage some points to start things off.
Well, I mean, Max, for me, it brings back to the point you're talking about here of what you said earlier, right? Of teams are not going to show respect and also be stubborn and like keep dropping their same spot because they want to fight for it. They don't want to give it up so freely. Is that maybe what we saw there?
I think so to some extent, but I think it is a very big risk because it is such a short-term tournament. Only 3 days, 18 games going to be happening here. If you try and fight consistently for a position and it's just not working out, your chances of a top position are pretty much down the drain, I would say. So you got to be willing to fight for your position, but give it up if it just is not going to work out for you.
And from one game, we see this playing path, and this game start is atypical, right? The playing path is difficult, so some teams having to reach their initial drop spots and where they want to even be stubborn in, they don't get the opportunity to do so. One of the teams, obviously representing from China, Regan's, not being able to usually go up to the Yasnaya location, even though there's kind of 2 teams already orbiting around there and moving into that position. It's going to be interesting to see how they approach a plane that allows them to potentially get there. Maybe we see a fight go down, but they were in a, okay, let's consolidate and try and find a different location, considering this plane path is difficult for us to get to where we want to go.
Okay, well, I want to give a big shout out before we do break out more things here to Aramco as well, helping provide this event and put it on for us. So thank you so much to these guys for making this possible. But speaking of making it possible, I mean, just to round things out, Vampire putting up 39 points. Now, you look at 39. Thing is, it gives you such a nice buffer, right? It gives you such a nice buffer for like later matches because you cannot afford to have too many bad matches in this if you want to take home the trophy and if you obviously want to move on into the after party.
And the fact you have 18 teams in this lobby, right, it does allow these games to happen a little bit more often for teams, so that comeback potential, I would say, is a lot more present for some of these guys.
I'm going to say I covered some esports in Thailand recently, and the Thailand fans are going to be going absolutely wild at seeing a 39-point game coming out from them. The amount of eliminations they were able to get in this game, rolling from fight to fight, was so impressive. And the fact that they were able to win out the North Rozhok situation as well against some of these teams coming in. You've got Box lurking there trying to deal with it. You've got Stalwart coming in from that right-hand side. And then also Donuts being in the position. Very, very impressive by them.
Okay, well, we can see some of our highlights here as well. If you guys want to walk through anything in particular, to be fair, I would hate to be an observer right now because of how much action was happening, especially towards like the middle stages of the game. But we can see here, I mean, TJB, again, a team that we've seen quite extensively when it comes to Western Europe, right? We saw them initially when they're known as Panda, the Unicorns of Love, then TJB, a team who does decently well when it comes to PMPL, but when they move into regionals, they seem to struggle.
It was like there was a bit of a conveyor belt for TJB to get some eliminations here in this game. Given the circle and where it shifted north of that river position, TJB had that 2-2 split already in place to greet anybody coming their way. So some nice eliminations for them to start off the tournament.
We've seen right now the perfect breach coming out from Vampire here, just pushing right onto Donuts. And actually, I would say Vampire, in terms of being opportunistic, were 10 out of 10. They waited for Donuts to regroup as a full squad away from their 2-2 split. They see that position, instantly send it forward to take that spot.
And a very difficult thing about Rozhok is its multi-tiered layers of where the buildings are, those angles that you can take against some of these teams. Box fell very much victim to that, to the Vampires, as they swooped down and bit them on the neck. And from that, I mean, it was just a great conversion. I love what they presented here in this first game.
But I feel like at the same time, putting on a match like that, you just basically put a giant bullseye on your back. And also from your fans, right? They expect you now to have this kind of, not maybe this kind of performance with how dominant it was, but they expect you to keep this momentum going. I mean, I guess the upside for them is like you have an extremely good match on the first one of the entire event, and that gives you like a nice high into the future games.
Yeah, the thing is, there was definitely a lot of mayhem happening in this match, and they capitalized on the mayhem. So it proves to me, at least, that this team, Vampire, can deal with stressful situations. If they have a really bad circle, I expect they can work with it and potentially come out on top and get a win when you really don't expect it.
And there is more mayhem because we have more teams in the lobby, because more people are surviving into those later stages of the games. But the thing that impresses me the most is that this was not a central location that they just held down and they just shot at everybody as they came in. No, it was constant movement, constant attempts at trying to find the next best position to where they had to fight through other teams to get to. So that kind of war-type effort that they're able to bring here to this first game, very, very excellent.
And to add on top of that, actually, for Vampire, the very interesting thing is every time they took a fight, the fight lasted, what, like 20 seconds, 25 seconds tops.
It was fast execution.
It was super snappy. And the fact that they put that instantly, they could shift to another position, take that spot, take another fight. So I think the execution speed of things definitely made it a lot easier for them to secure the win.
So I have a question for you, Kalaris. Past, well, since obviously COVID started, we have been online for the most part, and we haven't really been offline together. You typically have a nice little sound you make when we see players pull off a lot of damage, or we see teams pull off a lot of damage. We're actually going to take a look at the damage from this last match from all the teams. And I'm curious, how high will Vampire be? 3,600 is not bad.
You know, actually, I thought they were going to show all the players, and I would have estimated with that many eliminations, maybe all of them would have been above 1k damage, which would have been the proper sound that I was bringing. But that is extremely formidable. I mean, the thing is as well is that, yes, Donuts USG actually did put out a lot of damage, but you kind of expect that when they've got the 2-2 split that they had in Rozhok to be able to fire down on anybody that's coming into that area. But the fact that Vampire was going from fight to fight, traversing from fight to fight, and bringing that firepower while also still keeping themselves alive, still covering all their angles, so formidable.
I think they barely got knocked in like all of those fights they took versus the Wildcats, versus Vivo Keyed, versus also Donuts at the end. The fact that you keep 4 players moving around and you're not losing any time going for the res is so important for them to get that success, to get the win at the end of the day.
And the
great stuff.
The rest of the numbers are very urban warfare-esque, very even between all of these other teams, because you generally get in these situations where, unfortunately, for all the other teams, they're all shooting each other all the time. And you get a knock, that person moves behind a wall, you get the res, and it's kind of very chip damage-esque in this urban warfare fight. So the other two teams, the fact that they stand out so much in an urban ending is crazy.
I want to play devil's advocate here, though, for Vampire. 3,600 is a lot of damage, to be completely fair. But 24 limbs, I maybe expected some more damage. Does this maybe show they were getting a lot of, like they were finishing off knocks from other teams? Or was this like what you would expect for 24 limbs?
I think the high damage, a lot of that came from their very wide rotation, right? They were trying to clear some space on the northern side, getting rid of like TJB, Vivo, Keyed, also your Wildcats team. I think that was the main reason why their damage was so high, and then they just capitalized, and just every bit of damage they got in that city finish resulted in eliminations, extra knocks coming on through. So I'm not really surprised to see that high damage and like a little bit lower eliminations. We said low eliminations is still 24.
Yeah, there was 2 phases to their approach to Rozhok. One was the actual approach where a lot of the teams in Rozhok are paying attention mostly to teams that are in Rozhok. And as they're pushing up north of the warehouse into Rozhok, not a lot of people in Rozhok can see that because it's kind of a little bit of a downhill. A downhill.
Not an uphill, it's a downhill.
That's right.
Gotcha.
And then once they get into Rozhok, they have the highest location. So it's very difficult for people to dislodge them.
Okay, well, gentlemen, I feel like we did justice to that first match. Vampire definitely did justice as well, but we do have a short little break here before we do get into our second match. So in the meantime, I'm going to send you over to Team Falcons and basketball. I'm going to leave it at that.
But you got 2. I mean, it's I don't know how they got 11.
To be fair, 3 is actually not bad, because that looks pretty difficult.
I think I would get 1 on like a lucky day. It's not. I don't believe in myself when it comes to those type of things.
Are you saying Maxman in sports not so good?
I mean, yeah, clearly. No, it doesn't go together.
I haven't even been mean to you on desk yet. You're being mean to yourself.
Exactly, it feels weird, so I have to do it. Yeah, exactly, I have to do it to
Jason,
myself.
we've conditioned him. It's been a while.
It's a little bit odd now that I'm not being mean, but don't worry, we still got plenty of days left, right? We talked about Vampire a lot. We talked about you making a sound. We didn't get to see player stats then, but we're going to see them now. So let's get an idea of actually who was the standout players on that roster and why they got the 3,600 damage.
So close to 3 1Ks, but Mike really kind of pulling out here with the 1,100 damage coming in. I mean, the interesting thing about all of this for me is the fact that not a lot of them took massive amounts of damage. I mean, of course, apart from one in particular, but the way in which we see this damage coming in, they were, as you were saying, they were executing these fights very quickly to move on to the next one, to move on to the next important location, like checkpoints to move to the eventual winning location.
Yeah, and exactly. You saw during those fights, the Ravenclaw was always the one breaching the compounds, right? And he would sure take a lot of damage. Sometimes he would get knocked, but you have one player that has to do the dirty work. He was the one doing it.
He's the tank. He's
exactly.
the tank of the team. You got your 2 DPSers. And we can't see healing, so I don't know if we have
He was tanking the raid, man. He was going for it.
Exactly.
The bosses fell down real quick, but I mean, Ravenclaw really did a lot of work to get the team in those positions, and once they were involved, like, it was game over.
I mean, you make a really good point, right? Because if you look at damage received across the boards besides him, it is insanely low for the amount of damage they did and for the amount of eliminations they got. So it seems like their fights were extremely clean.
I think there were moments of opportunistic gameplay as well here, though, at play. If you think about all of the teams that are kind of on that north coast of the riverbank here coming into Rozhok, as they come away from the bridge, a lot of those teams are kind of engaged in a few scrappy fights here and there, and there were moments where Vampire Esports did clean up some of those fights very swiftly and then move into their kind of territory. So that's partially the reason, but just, yeah, great execution.
And I want to give a shout out, because we talked about coaches before, right? We actually have Corpy coaching the team.